just when you think you're done, you go to take your gloves off and realise they were not PU glue proof. I just want to go home. Good morning, we are back on the floor build and I'm hoping that we should be able to get trailer A done by the end of the day. We've got to insulate and we've got to deck it out. Let's make a start and then I'll give you a little insight into what Instagram have been saying about what we should call these. One of the first things we need to do is level up our joist just to make sure that this line, which is where kind of the two marry together, is nice and straight. We should obviously have a factory finish on the end of our steels, so most of it we can just go off the seals. We'll use the string line later on for floor. Right, a tap here and a tap there is not quite enough. We're gonna have to just get the tractor. When we lifted this, put the membrane under, it's obviously overhanging a smidge. It needs to get that way about 5 mil, so we'll just shunt it. Too much. Right, just had a positive visit from an ecologist, if there is such a thing. Talking all things bats and birds, but it's all part of the process, so that's all done. Back to insulation. We'll cut them to length. These are 6 metre rolls. We need just under 3 metre for each one, so minimal wastage, and anything that is left we can tuck in anyway. So I've just marked on our board 295, and I've got another board that will sit down, just hinge down onto that. Cut, I'm just using like a bread knife, easier than anything. There's special saws for all this sort of stuff, but it's pre-perforated, so we've got our width absolutely spot on. Just literally just a run through with the knife and then we're good to go. So I'm gonna just do a time lapse because we've got a whole load to do. Let's crack on. Well, hopefully you got the idea. Right, that is one half done. Now I'm not sure what half this one is yet. The poll went out on Instagram. Well, it wasn't a poll, it was just give your suggestions, wasn't it? There were some good ones. Anton deck, as in, because it's made out of timber. Anton deck, there was Bill and Ben. Podge and Podge. Two Ronnies. Hodge and Podge, yeah. Jack and Rafter. Trailer face. Lamb and Chop. Beavis and Butthead. Beavis and Butthead was going to be one of mine. There was one which was about butting up together, wasn't it? Cheeks. Because you're going to butt them up together. The cheeky girls, or the cheek. No, it wasn't. It was just cheek. Cheek 1 and cheek 2, because they're going to be butt together. That was quite clever. Barry and Paul. And then when you put them together, you can say, to me, to you. Back to the insulation. A couple of other things before we cover it all up. We have gone with just a normal multi-purpose sort of soft insulation like you would use in a loft, and from a U value perspective, I may have touched on this in the last video, we are equal to what we would have got if we'd used the 100mm Kingspan, and this is obviously a much quicker way of going. And as far as cost goes, I've used 8 rolls. I've got a little bit left over. Well, I know that because I've got 8 rolls left for that side, so 7 or 8 rolls. We've got, these were between 20 and 30 pounds each, I think, so way under 300 pounds to insulate the whole floor to a sensible U value. And just to put it into context, we would have needed 14 full-size PIR boards plus another 6, I think, so that's 20. And if you look at 100mm PIR nowadays, it's somewhere in the region of 60 or 70 pounds. So you get the idea. Got to a point now where we're ready to board over. Let's look at the boards. Because we're building in a farmyard, we wanted it to be pretty forgiving as far as weather goes. And this is the premium option as far as chipboard goes. 22mm, and this is the Protect, the Edgar Protect. So it's got just such a heavy duty top on
Once we glue it all in, it's going to be completely waterproof. A lot of these boards, you don't just use mechanical fixings or screw it down, you glue them. And you don't just use PVA, you use a PU glue. And PU glue is not the cheapest, and you get through a lot of it. One bottle, a kilogram bottle, takes I think 5 boards, covers 5 boards. We've got a lot more than that. I hunted around and I found this stuff. It's called chipstick, and I bought a whole 12 bottles, is it? And I think it was £80 or £90. So a big saving there, providing it does the job. They were £22 a bottle. This is like well under half price.
Yeah.
There's a lot of mass going on into this.
How many boards will one of them do? Is it the same 1 kilogram?
Yeah.
Oh, cool.
Same size.
Easy comparison then.
D4, PU glue, as long as it foams up. Yeah. So this is the stuff you don't want to get on your fingers. It's basically like an expanding foam. It's that type of PU.
It's like PVA glue.
No, it's no. Otherwise, it would have been a lot cheaper. This expands. Yeah, it gets stains your fingers. You know when it basically foams up. So we'll end up with like foam ridges between all the boards, and that you can leave them there until you've actually finished the build. One little detail here is rather than bring the membrane all the way on top of the steels and up the outside here, there's a chance rain would get down that gap during the build and get under. So I've brought the last one up inside. We can fold it over, put our board on. Ordinarily you'd want a vapor barrier, you know, above the insulation, on the warm side of the insulation. I haven't checked the specs, but I'm pretty sure it's got plastic lining on the bottom and the top. We're pretty vapor tight. There's not any risk of condensate, you know, water vapor getting down through our floor. And on top of this, we'll either have a laminate or an LVT or carpet or whatever. So we're good. We're good to go. Right, I'm afraid you missed out on a few boards and a few crumpets. It wasn't quite going to plan. It's typical, first board, slightly off, it could skew the rest. So I've already put the first board in, so I've actually put a string line all the way along. There is, just due to the nature of how long this is and the fact it's made up of 4 different sections, 4 different timbers, there's a little bit of in and out. And while we will go along and tweak that, or we have, I didn't want to follow the timber, so by putting the string line there for my first course, it was okay. And now we're good to go. We're just repetitive. It's light, it's dry. I'm going to crack on and do this. Everyone's happy. I'm happy. And I think we can get this done in about an hour. I hope. I think it's going to go on my last board, I think. I'm only human, I'm knackered. I'll just dry fit them just to make sure everything's sealed with dry night tonight, touch wood, or chipboard. So we'll just cap it off with some dry ones. They're actually really easy to fit. It's just getting late. I've still got chores to do. I don't want to make too much noise with neighbours around. So let's get this one glued up, call it a day. So far I like this stuff. A few things I've noticed. One is, if you're doing a long stretch like this, a very long stretch, I doubt many floors are this long, then by the time you get back to your next row, the glue is dried and foamed up enough that it actually causes a blockage, so you can't get the tongue into the groove. So you either want to stop an inch short of the next board going down, or just make sure you clear it out. It's easy enough to pick out. It's just a bit of a pain if you seat it all the way in and then realise it's jamming it up. There's a lot of, well, there's two ways of fitting it. One is glue only. Now I'm not sure in this application it would be as effective, but the fact that the glue is so good and it relies on the glue so much, I'm not going all out on the fixings because, of course, every time we penetrate this, that is a weak spot for moisture to get in. So this surface is great, completely waterproof. Then the gaps become waterproof once the glue foams up. But any holes from screws or nails, I'm guessing that they're not self-sealing, so they're just a weak point. Quite a trek. That's how far I'm going to have to run to tell the kids off when they're running around in the bedrooms. Another thing, because I'm bound to have a comment, obviously, if you can, use an offcut of the tongue or the groove so that you can push that on to tap as used as a sacrificial block. Just because of all these, how they've all ended, I haven't ended up with a single piece which has got a groove on it. Hence why I'm using a block, but it's definitely getting a lot heavier as the day goes on. Even you lot are falling over. Well, there we go. We almost did it. Insulated and boarded. 50 square meters. Well, 48, somewhere like that. We are halfway there to having the foundations of our little house, or big house, I guess. A few benefits of how I designed it, and it isn't chance, I did mean for it. We've gone for 3 meters rather than a 10-foot chassis. That means it's exactly 5 of these, which means that any discrepancies in the joists, we know that these are right because we're nice and tight on the goings. So when I do fit this final row, we'll rip this tongue off all the way along. It should end up flush with our timber underneath, but if it's not, and it's a little bit off at here and there, doesn't matter. This will be our datum for the marriage line between the two. Well, that's how I'm picturing it's going to go. Remember, underneath we've got these bolts or sections, angles on here, which will be where we bolt the 2 chassis together, along with a few other points in the building itself. 2 things we're still yet to do. One, we need to bolt the whole structure to the chassis rather than welding on the angles when it was made. We had it made without them because actually at that point we were going to go 400 centres, so I'm glad we didn't. So Joe's picked up some angles, heavy duty angles today. We'll bolt them into the steel and then into the timber. So that'll just anchor. I think we're going to do like 10 points per chassis. And then in addition to that, we need to level up because at the moment we've got it on the sands and on the wheels, but I can still tell there's a little bit of a, well, remember the chassis are welded and slightly sprung intentionally so that they will lie flat once built. But I want to make sure that we're as level as possible before we get any further, so that from now on, when we start raising up walls, framing out internal walls, doors, windows, everything, it all goes in nice and plumb and square. And then of course you good folk are going to have to sit through Joe and I doing this one in a day or two. But don't think you're going to get away without doing the evening chores with me. You can sit through it. We've got to do the, we're going to do everything actually. Chickens are on the loose still. Sheep are moved up to the paddock. So they're not electric fenced tonight, but I'm trusting all the fencing. There's only a little bit of hedge, holy hedge. But let's go feed the pigs. So first up, we've got Matilda. She's been out all day, but she's now in. Come on. We do need to get on and build her little hog hotel, or little chalet for her, and then all the pigs will be out. Right, on with pigs. Careful, that fence is on. Come on now. So there's only that little bit of hedge at the bottom there that goes through to the hill field, which is not fenced, but if the lambs get through, they'll find their way back. They're a sensible bunch. How are we, girls? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Are we missing a lamb? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. Absolutely loving the sheep. So far, so good. I won't say low maintenance because stuff always goes wrong with sheep and livestock in general, but as far as not having to worry about feed all the time and fencing and penning and digging up stuff and biting each other, they're okay, they're okay. And we've got great neighbours who are sheep gurus, who are there if we need them, plus a whole bunch of people online who we've met over the past year or so, or chatted to over the past year or so, who have just been really helpful with sourcing the right, you know, strains and breeds to start with, and then just from here on, you know, sourcing a tup later in the year for breeding and all sorts. Right, next pen, the meaties. Oh, forgot that electric was on. So these, oh, it's great to have them free ranging. These are our batch of meat birds for the year. We'll probably do another batch later in the year. And I've put the electric netting on for now, but I think I'll still pen them tonight in that little run, which means we've got to catch them. Now is a good time. Ah, too good to be true. Girls did the rabbits before they left. Tilly's water is out in the field, so she's going to have to have a bucket, which she'll probably knock over. Now we need to become chicken whisperer. Come on now. You're missing out. In there. Thank you. One more. You're missing out. In there. Thank you. One more. In. Of course, the benefit of living on site will be you can shut them up when they're actually in. That said, we are going to move them to a secure pen out on the grass rather than bringing them back into the stable each time. They're all good. Which means all I've got to do now is pack up tools, pack up a picnic, and call it a day. If you've enjoyed the video, make sure you give us a thumbs up. Let us know in the comments what you're enjoying watching on our channel, because it has been a mixed bag lately, I will admit it. You have been subjected to all sorts of farming goodness rather than the usual DIY content. So thank you for bearing with us on that. We were just getting on with it because we had plenty going on. And believe me, there will be more DIY and construction than you can shake a stick at soon. So yeah, let us know what you're enjoying on the channel, if the hodgepodge mix is okay or not. Just when you think you're done, you go to take your gloves off and realise they were not PU glue proof. I just want to go home. Please be better on the right hand. For you. Pretty sure the fingerprint thing on the Mac isn't going to work tonight when I get home.